The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. This quote is a reminder that life is not always smooth sailing, and sometimes we face obstacles and setbacks. But the true measure of success lies in our ability to get back up and keep moving forward. You see, failure is not the opposite of success. It's a part of success. We learn more from our failures than from our successes because they teach us resilience, determination, and perseverance. Think about it. Every successful person you admire has faced challenges, setbacks, and failures along the way. But they didn't give up. They didn't let their failures define them. Instead, they got up and kept going, with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. So, what does it take to rise every time we fall? First and foremost, it takes a mindset shift. We need to embrace failure as a natural part of the journey towards success, rather than something to be ashamed of or feared. We also need to develop resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks and keep moving forward. This can be done by developing a support system, cultivating positive self-talk, and setting achievable goals. But perhaps the most important factor in rising every time we fall is a deep sense of purpose. When we have a clear sense of why we're doing what we're doing, it gives us the motivation and determination to keep going, even in the face of adversity. And that's what Nelson Mandela embodied, a deep sense of purpose and commitment to his cause, even in the face of immense adversity. He faced setbacks, imprisonment, and personal sacrifice, but he never gave up on his vision of a better world. So, my friends, remember this. The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Embrace failure as a natural part of the journey towards success, develop resilience, and cultivate a deep sense of purpose. With these tools, we can overcome any obstacle and achieve our wildest dreams. Now, here is a short story about this great quote. Once upon a time, in a small African village, there was a young boy named Kwame. Kwame had always been curious and adventurous, constantly exploring the surrounding forests and rivers. However, one day, while playing near a nearby river, Kwame slipped and fell into the water. He struggled to keep his head above water, but the current was too strong. Kwame was swept downstream, and despite his best efforts, he couldn't seem to find his way back to the surface. As the water pushed him further downstream, Kwame began to feel the weight of his clothes pulling him under. Panic began to set in as he realized that he might not make it out alive. In his desperation, he cried out for help, hoping someone would hear him. But as the seconds ticked by, he became increasingly aware that he was alone and helpless. Just as Kwame was about to give up hope, a hand reached out and grabbed him by the wrist. It was an old man who had been fishing nearby. He pulled Kwame out of the water and onto the riverbank. Kwame was gasping for air and trembling from the cold. The old man took off his own coat and wrapped it around Kwame, trying to warm him up. As Kwame regained his breath, the old man began to speak. "Young man, do you know who I am?" he asked. Kwame shook his head, still too shaken to speak. "I am Nelson Mandela," said the old man, "and let me tell you something. The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall." Kwame didn't know who Nelson Mandela was, but he listened to the old man's words. The more he thought about them, the more they made sense. He had fallen into the river, but he had risen again. He had been saved by a stranger, but he was alive. Kwame realized that he had a choice to make. He could either let his fear and panic control him, or he could rise above it and learn from the experience. From that day forward, Kwame was a changed boy. He became more determined and focused, knowing that he could overcome any obstacle. He began to see the world in a new light, understanding that every experience, no matter how challenging, could be an opportunity for growth and learning. Years later, when Kwame had grown into a wise and respected man, he had the opportunity to meet Nelson Mandela again. He recounted the story of their first encounter and thanked him for the wisdom he had imparted that day. Mandela smiled and said, "It was not I who saved you, my friend. It was the strength that was within you all along. You simply needed someone to help you see it." And so Kwame continued to rise every time he fell, inspiring those around him with his courage and determination. He knew that he had the power to overcome any obstacle, as long as he had the strength to rise again.